So, that was Overlord by HellsBelles, and talking of HellsBelles, as we have been doing, we actually have HellsBelles here on the island. Actually, Paul Quigley, who is the driving force behind HellsBelles. And he went to a great deal of trouble. I think being cast away on an island would have been a piece of cake compared to what he's been through to get here with us. Yeah, I think he'll choose that option every time now. If ever anybody says, would you like to do something technical, it will be, no, just sink the boat and just leave me here. So welcome. Welcome to the island. It's very off-putting because seeing somebody else with my name is a bit weird, I think. So, yes, glad you could get here with us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And all our listeners have been very keen. You know, we captured a live person, you know, which is quite nice, really. And everybody has been sort of jumping up and down in anticipation to get you here. So, the first thing I wanted to ask you is, when did you first sort of realise you wanted to be a performer and you know, be in a band?
Oh, wow. What a question. Fantastic question. I think way back in the 70s. I mean, I don't know how old some of you guys are. And I'm going to give you the 1 minute version rather than the 30-minute version on this one. I think it was probably the 1970s when, you know, rock was huge, Zeppelin were massive, Queen were coming through. I was in my teens in those days, and I kind of realised that I could sing better than all the kids in my school, and everyone, of course, wanted to play the lead guitar because of people like Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix, and I think it was that era. It was when I was a teenager. I thought, you know, I felt like I had something that I was a little bit more attuned than other folks. You know, I was certainly not a big head. I'm certainly not a big head now. I just think that, you know, if you've got something to offer the world, you should give it to them. I've just nurtured it ever since, and hopefully I've refined what I can do, and I'm at the top of my game now. I just thought it was time to, you know, go for round two. You know, we had a big go at it in the 80s, and took time out, had a family, kids and all that stuff in the 90s and the noughties, and now it's back for the attack in this new decade. So that's a quick version of why I think I wanted to do it, and yeah, and here I am.
So, I mean, being a Brit, like you, sort of, you know about the setup. When you're at school and they say to you, so what do you want to be when you grow up? Because you say the careers officer, or the equivalent, you know. And they never take things like being a singer or an airline pilot that seriously, do they?
No, they don't. In fact, it's a very salient question, because I remember going into that very careers office, and he said, his eyebrows, and what else do you like to do? I said, well, I like stories, I like to write, and I like English. And he said, oh, well, what about journalism then? And I went, yeah, right, yeah, the BBC are crying out for people who can write, blah, blah, blah. So, and the irony was that I didn't go straight into journalism, but I did in the 1990s. I became a full-time. After HellsBelles Mark 1 in the 80s kind of didn't really, for financial reasons and other political reasons, didn't go in a certain direction, I did actually become a professional journalist, joined the NUJ, and became a pro-journo for the next 15 years, and that's what I've been doing up until the recent past. So he was right, he was kind of right. You know, I thought at the time, this guy's an absolute loon. Why would I want to work for the BBC? I didn't actually work for the BBC directly, but I certainly used to do, you know, lots of freelance sort of stuff, and yeah, so he was right. You know, don't diss him, don't diss him.
Yeah, and I actually worked for the career service, and I once said to somebody, you know, when they came back and said they'd seen yet another airline pilot, although this person came from Chorley. Now you know where Chorley is and how big Chorley is, and they didn't actually want to move at all. And I said, well, you know, being an airline pilot and not moving from Chorley is going to be a bit of a problem. And they couldn't see the funniness in that, really, so we sort of... But, you know, there are some people who actually do become, luckily, airline pilots, otherwise nobody would be able to go to another country, and people who become actors and singers. So, I mean, you know, you can't just dismiss them just because it's not the I want to work in Tesco's routine, really.
Exactly.
So, how did you get the original band together? Did you sort of always plan to be a band, or did you think perhaps about being a solo artist at first?
That's a great question. And I think the things about HellsBelles, the history of HellsBelles is very much two parts. It was the 80s HellsBelles and now this new version of the band. In the times, yeah, absolutely, I had considered solo, because being the vocalist, the songwriter, the guitarist, I could very much have gone out as a kind of anything from Joni Mitchell, Christy Moore, Bob Dylan kind of thing, and done it way. But I always wanted to be in a band. I think that the chemistry and the dynamic of a band has this certain uniqueness that no other vehicle. That's why I persevere now with the chemistry of other people, and it can be hard work because you have to be an HR department manager as well as being operations and chief exec and the whole the inspiration and whatever. It's hard and it is difficult. So I think the point is about bands and why is that it's just kind of like, I was thinking about this recently, it's kind of like a calling, is that, lots of people want to be a singer, and don't we know it, you see X Factor every week, and you get all these wannabes who kind of do it for the kind of what a lot of people perceive as the wrong reasons. I don't see it from that point of view at all. If I never ever get beyond today, I would be a happy man that I can just open my mouth and hopefully when I sing, it's musical, it touches people, it's emotive, it says something, and it's my take on my life that resonates with other people. I know I have to be financially successful to be happy. This is all it's about. It's just about the music. If I can make a few recordings before they pull the lid down on my coffin and just say, you're out of here, I'd be a happy guy. I really don't. I don't measure it by financial success. It sounds a bit cliche now, but it really is true. You can't take any of that stuff with you. There's no pockets on shrouds. So make the music, make people happy, make people inspired, and hopefully other kids will come up and just say, I can do that too. Because I don't hang around on street corners doing nothing, but they actually think, no, sorry, I'm going to go home, pick up a guitar, play the piano, anything, but do nothing. Don't ever waste your life. It's all, and don't expect instant results either. That's the one thing I found, is that the more you apply yourself to whatever it is, you refine it and you get better and better and better. And it's kind of like a team. My parents were teachers, maybe I've got a bit of that as well. Is that I really do like to inspire people now that I'm getting a bit older, is that I just think you're never too old to learn new tricks. I mean, the old horse and the old dog and new tricks thing is such a bad product, because you really can. And, music is my thing, and I know it's a lot of other people's things, and rightly so. And I'm looking forward to sort of doing duets with other people and basically spreading the whole rock thing out into folk and people, taking it back to the people, taking it back to sort of folk roots music. And this day and age where everything is electronic, you can have recording studios in a laptop, and it's all become very easy to do a lot of what used to take a lot of time. We couldn't take machines and very labour intensive. Now, of course, you can do it in minutes. But what you cannot do in minutes is create a really pokey song that really hits people in the gut, and that. You cannot manufacture that, and there's no software that will provide that for you. That still takes years and years of heartache and happiness and all the stuff that you and I and all of us experience as humans. That is not digitised. You cannot digitise that, and that's why us as artists will always have a uniqueness that hopefully we can all enjoy.
And I think that's why people of every age all over the world, they will have particular songs that hit them, and it doesn't matter what the artist is. It might not be an artist that they've ever heard before, but you can hear a song by Stained nowadays and think something in that hits you, something from Queen, something from Supertramp, something from maybe even an opera singer, anything, but there's something in it, the way they sing it, the way they put themselves into it, that makes it hit a chord in you, and you want to listen to it, to experience it, don't you think?
Oh, totally. I mean, it's a bit like with this sort of thing, it's the classic case that no matter who we are, we always, if we're going through a bad patch like relationships, and we all have relationships, we can't live, no man's an island, so we all do need to go through them. And we have really bad times in the bands, we have wonderful times, and if you find a song that resonates, sometimes you find you'll go through a bad patch, and there's this soundtrack to your life aspect that you'll always, a certain period, or maybe a certain holiday, where you that place or that smell or that that drink or something like that. And that's the power of music. Now, what is it? What is it that does that? That's always fascinated me, that you can link a time or a place to a particular moment in time in your life, and that one song will bring it all back. I mean, wow! I mean, let me be part of that. I want to tap into that source, and if I could ever become someone else's soundtrack of their life, you know, job done, you know, great. I would love to be able to help someone, you know, their life or whatever. And I have written songs myself, I'm sure you do, that again, that you remember from certain times, and it's found fantastic. I cannot think of anything else, whether it's a book or a movie, it's quite so personal as that, and that's why music is so special.
Yeah. What sort of music and artists sort of influenced and inspired you growing up, and made you sort of turn in the particular direction you did music-wise?
Great question. I've always had a thing for heavy rock, and I don't know why. I think it's because it's very emotional. In this day and age, it's got too loud. I think it's the volume thing's overtaken the power of... I think so, but I mean, anything that's melodic and gutsy, and that went right back to things like, I mean, the 60s was slightly too early for me. I was alive in them, but I was only very, very, very young. 70s was pretty much when I actually started to look at bands like Slade, and Bolan, and Bowie, and then it was Queen, and like later glam, then it turned punk. But I was still pretty punk in some ways. I'd only been turned on to it by the Zeppelin, Sabbath, the classic Deep Purple, Mark II, you know, the early, where you really had to know how to play an instrument. Punk came along and kind of turned that on its head and said, you don't have to know how to play an instrument, you just have to get it there and have attitude. And I liked the attitude aspect. But I did always think, punk, well, they're only going to be able to go so far because, you know, 3 chords and an attitude is fine. But I always thought I liked bands like Rush and Yes and the more techno ones who obviously put a lot more thought into what they were doing. And then, of course, the whole thing about that sort of prog rock thing, which I'm touching on, was that there was the whole literature aspect about they were telling very intricate historical and mystical stories, and I was turned on by that. So I had a whole wide, broad church thing. And then, of course, I got into a bit of reggae in the late 70s when there were bands like Steel Pulse. I was living near Birmingham at the time. It was a great band called Steel Pulse. Very earthy reggae band, rich reggae band, and I loved all that, and that kind of dovetailed with the punky thing. So I wanted to draw upon, I loved Elton John and the musicality of Elton John and guys like that. So I just wanted to tap into all of those things, and so that when it was my turn to sort of sit down and think, okay, what have I got to say? And I thought, I'm going to have to pass muster here. I'm going to have to be really shit hot. And this could take me 5 years, 10 years to get to I wasn't going to throw myself at the world until I thought I really could do what I to add some value. And I wasn't going to throw myself as an amateur, so I took a long, long time to get around to it. And then I think by the time HellsBelles came out in '84, I was about, just starting to hit my form. Guitar playing, I was getting better. And I used to teach the show the guys what riffs I wanted them to do, and they were more than happy to do that. But I mean, it was the 70s, I think, really, when I think that the music in some ways was at a certain point in that time, it was pre-punk, so it was that point where music kind of got thrown open to the world, and that was wonderful. But just before that, there was like a few years from sort of like 71 to 75, there was the quality of recording music was at its highest, of course, because they just got from, with an 8-track, it wasn't exactly an 8-track, but I mean, in terms of studio technology, I had this big 2-inch tape of 24-track, and it was getting very complex mixes, and people were doing wonderful things with string orchestration, and guitar tech was getting very, very, guitar effects were getting more and more complicated and wonderful. And it was just such an amazing time. I mean, Zeppelin were sort of a great sort of benchmark band, because they started with just as a blues band, and they went through all of the high-tech mellotrons, and they touched up all that new sort of gizmos, but at the end of the day, they've always had that energy, that power. That punk tapped into the power aspect, but it didn't have that. It didn't have enough breadth to sort of really take it sort of too far, I don't think. So all of that, I was listening and I was absorbing it like a big human sponge, and I'd like to think that sort of 20 years later, I'm still learning, and I still listen to folk music now. I love folk music. I love country music, Irish music, which is my family roots in Ireland and all that stuff. I love all that stuff, and I'm absorbing it now, because as far as I'm concerned, the essence of songwriting is a story, a start, a middle, and end, and no matter if you have a great song about a whole lot of love or something, normally you'll find if you sit down and read the lyrics, it's about something, it's about the way some one or two people are feeling. So anyway, I'm going to release this button now, because I can go on for more, so I'm going to hand back to you.
Well, everybody...
Oh, you don't have to worry about time.
No.
I have a show slot coming up next, and I don't mind giving up some of the time.
That's very good of you.
You're a great guy, you know that.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah.
So when you were in a few bands before you actually started HellsBelles, weren't you?
That's right, yes.
So tell us about them and what made you go from them to HellsBelles itself.
Well, I think that, as with many people, you don't really know. It's only in retrospect that you can see the path you took. They were kind of, I'd say, starter bands, I would say. No disrespect to the guys, but I mean, it's all about you sucking it and seeing and trying to sort of get noticed on the London scene at the time. There were bands like Swing Fire that I was with. I went to those bands on Bronze Records, and I kind of did the girls' school videos with them and got to know Lenny and the girls and everything through the Bronze connection. There was a band that they had on the stable called Bronze, and I worked with them. Didn't work out with them, unfortunately, but at the same time, I stumbled into Pooch and the guys from Discharge, who just left that punk band. They'd just come off the US tour in '83. The guys from Metallica had been influenced by Discharge, and they were a really hardcore punk band, of course. Yeah, even despite what I was saying a minute ago about the punk aspect, they have this energy and they have this political thing that really turned me on. And when Pooch and Gary left Discharge, wanted to form a more metal band because the whole Motley Crue, Van Halen thing was starting to take off in LA, and the big hair was getting bigger, and we were doing the combing spikes and the leather. I just literally, it's one of those things. It was pure luck, fortune, serendipity, any of those wonderful terms, and we got on. I mean, that's if you get on with these people and you can work with them. We got on. We had the same values at the time. And from beginning of 84 through 87, we worked our nuts off, and we got a good deal and got the record out, and Kerrang loved us, and it was all going great. And maybe for another time, I'll give you the reasons if you're interested as to quite why we think it didn't pan out and sort of explode at that point, mostly to do with finances. But musically, yeah, I mean, everything that we did, like you mentioned, you played Overload. I mean, it's all great stuff, and I wish that we could have the equivalent of a Led Zepp 2 and a Led Zepp 3 and a sophomore album to carry on where we left up, but it wasn't to be, and life carries on. But that's how the HellsBelles thing came, and more than, but like with most things in life, you kind of find yourself in a beginning situation, and you either grasp the net when you take it, or you don't, or we did, and so yeah, that's how it began. Really, those bands were sort of feeder bands into HellsBelles. So yeah.
And you've had other members. You had the gentleman from Black Sabbath, didn't you? Who was with Ozzy as well at one point.
Yes, you're referring to Lindsay Bridgewater. I don't think he was actually doing a session work from Sabbath. I think he did Budgie. He certainly did Budgie before in the 70s. He then did the two first Ozzy Osbourne Blizzard of Oz tours with Randy Rhoads, Bob Daisley, Louise Presley. So he was on that, and yeah, he played on our album, and he was a good friend of the band. And I'm still in touch with him, and at some stage I'm going to be bringing Lindsay back for a bit of keyboard work. His chops are far better than mine,
So, how did you come up with the name HellsBelles?
Well, that's a very good question. That one was something that was mooted when I joined Pooch, Gary, back in 83, 84. They had this idea that they were going to call it HellsBelles. From memory, I knew that there'd been a cult biker movie in 1969 called HellsBelles, the same spelling as HELL''S BELLES. And also back in World War II, there'd been because I was a big sort of military fan, there'd been a US Air Force bomber nickname of a bomber. I can't remember which Air Force squadron it was, but they used to paint the slogans and stuff on the fuselage of the planes. And one of them, they had this picture of this woman, flame-haired woman. It was Hell, so it has a very sort of militaristic, historical connection with it. So it was one of those two. And then, of course, there was this AC/DC track that came out in 1980 on Back in Black, but different spelling, didn't have the E on it. And it just seemed like a good thing because there was Iron Maiden, female connotation, Twisted Sister, Chromaly, everything at the time as a genre with the metal bands are having some sort of female connotation. Yeah, because the hell aspect, like the black and the hell and the sad connection, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of like melting pot, brainstormed an idea, seemed like we could go with it, and that's what we did. We got a guy to design the funny logo that we had at the time, and then it sticks, and of course once you stick with something you can't really change your mind, so it was like any one of the above. It was kind of where it came from.
Oh, I've lost my button. Yes, and I lost my button then. I was looking all over for it thinking, oh God, I've lost the button. So I thought
you haven't lost me either. It appears that she's not speaking at the moment.
Yes, because I pressed the wrong button. I just realised. I'm thinking, why can't they hear me? I pressed the wrong... You know, these newbie DJs, this is what happens, you see. So I thought we'd play something from HellsBelles for people to listen to who just tuned into the interview. We have a captive guest here from the band HellsBelles, you see, and his name is Paul Quigley, and I'm very happy with it being my nick. It's just quite sort of, you know, exciting really. So I thought we'd play Strange Love. Do you want to tell us anything about that one?
Yeah, it's probably the least metal song we probably ever wrote. Lindsay's playing on that. Lindsay Bridgewater's playing, I think he's playing Hammond organ on that one. I wrote that, there were songs like Jump. Van Halen came out with songs like Jump, and I kind of thought, yeah, we can do a bit of melodic stuff, go for the FM thing. Barricade had come out as a single, and I thought, do something fairly up, major key rather than demonic sort of stuff, the way where we'd be doing like full on, like overload bit sort of pacey stuff. And it was just a bit melodic and a bit nice, and I thought, you know, we needed some balance in the album. That, you know, it was an album track at the time. I hadn't planned to put it out as a single, so then we needed to move from sort of some of the more pacey things, from Storm Break Loose, Screaming for Mercy, which was more like, you know, 180 BPM, really pacey sort of punky rock tracks, to something a little bit more low key. So Strange Love was kind of born out of that, and bugger to play live, of course, because there was only the guitar and bass, and we needed the keyboard. So we didn't play it live that often. We did it a fair few times, and there were some very high notes that took me quite a long time to get some really high C's up in that one. I don't know if I could do that today, but I'm going to give it a go. So that's the kind of the background to that one. Strange Love, yeah.
So here, for everybody, this is HellsBelles and Strange Love.
All right.